Hi, everybody. I know I look crazy, and the 80s called and they want their headband back. But I am keeping the headband on because a lot of the work we're going to be talking about in this specific chapter came from the 80s. But it's good stuff. This chapter is talking about stress, conflict, and coping in the workplace. This is a really important issue because we have a lot of people who go into the speech pathology business and they become burned out and they end up selling greeting cards. And I want to talk to you about how you can avoid that because you have put too much time, too much energy, and too much money into your education thus far. We want to keep you in this profession. The chapter talks about how all professionals experience workplace conflict. In fact, they talk about the fact that 75% of American workers feel that they have a stressful workplace. We do tend to have more stress in the United States than in other countries because of the way our culture works. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, they take more vacations, they tend to support their workers have more time off, and for having a baby, and they do have less reported stress in the workplace. So we're going to talk about things that will hopefully keep you in the workplace and keep you healthy. You need to be aware of your own physiological responses to stress. As you see and hear, workplace stress is detrimental to your physical and your emotional responses. You're going to see, and you may have felt this in graduate school. I know personally when I was in graduate school, I was a victim of what you would call stomach and gastrointestinal issues. I would get so sick, I would have such bad stomach aches that sometimes I would be afraid that I would maybe miss a client because I was literally sitting on the toilet. I've never had that issue since graduate school ended. And when I look back, part of it was my personality, part of it was the culture of graduate school, and these things physically made me sick. um, I think if you look at table 27.1, you'll see some types of sources of stress, and I want you to look at that and get an idea. One of the things you might find in the workplace that can lead to stress is bullying. And we talk about bullying in the schools and in the context of the school situation, but that's not the only place bullies live. Bullies live in the workplace, and I can tell you from personal experience that if you become a victim of bullying, you won't realize it, and you won't realize it until you yourself become inundated with some of these symptoms. Bullies tend to be convincing, they're charming, they have what people will call karma. People will love them, people will gravitate to them, they will have a lot of pull. And in my particular case, I'm going to tell you it very quickly. I was very impressed with this bully. This bully was a younger professional that I saw as somebody who was dynamic, intelligent, and who came to our workplace after she had, I don't know, I think she was almost kicked out of her previous workplace now that I look back and I look at her story. But as a person, in a senior position, I really wanted this younger person to succeed. I happen to be very empathic. I tend to feel others' feelings, I understand their feelings, and I think this is not uncommon for somebody who is in speech language pathology. We're therapists. We understand what people go through. We tend to understand what they're feeling, and we work through that. So I really want you to read this article that I have right here. I'm going to click on it. I don't know what will happen as I'm doing this. Actually, I probably shouldn't do that. But I really want you to go to this article. It's about working with sociopaths. in the situation I was working with, I supported this person so wholeheartedly. And I tended to want to be a part of her power. And there was a situation where she was younger. I was one of the senior members. She would gather all the younger workers, and professionally and socially, she became the leader. I'm not a natural leader. I can lead when I need to, but I didn't realize that I was getting sucked into her situation. And I think what happened in that situation is she knew my vulnerabilities, very, very smart person, and she, as long as she was the leader of the pack, things were great. And if she did something that I disagreed with, even ethically, and had questions about, and if I did question her ethics, she would turn the whole pack against me. It became a very hostile work environment for me, and it became an environment I eventually left. I had been a professional for 20 some years. I had been successful, but this situation turned me on my ear and made me reevaluate a lot. I don't want this type of thing to happen to you. There are people out there in the workplace who tend to gather all the karma. They have a lot of charisma. Be careful of those people. It can be a good thing. They can be smart. They can lead into good things, but just as easily they can pull people into situations that aren't healthy. You may also be the victim of a bad boss. They don't view work as a partnership. They tend to think that the people who work, quote, under them are there for their pleasure, or are there for their ability to climb up the ladder. Look at table 27.3 for signs of a bad boss, and be aware of that should you encounter that. When you're working for a bad boss, you will start having physical and psychological issues. You will not want to go to work. You will feel trepidatious. You might avoid work. You might get ill a lot and really feel ill and have to call in sick. And that is a situation you should be aware of. Burnout is another issue. You may become emotionally exhausted. This word depersonalization, they talk about it in your book. They give you a nice definition, but depersonalization is also, there's another element to depersonalization, and that is where you feel like you are going through the motions. You almost feel like you forget who you are, and you feel robotic-like. You introspect and you think, I don't even remember why I did what I did. I am just kind of going through the motions. And you feel like you aren't accomplishing anything. This type of burnout can come from a boss who is asking you to do too much, who is not giving you credit for the work you have done, and who just piles on more work. The stages of burnout include that you don't feel balanced between what you need to do, what you must do, and how you can manage that type of work. You might feel anxious, you might not be able to sleep, you might feel more tired, and then you might become defensive. You know you didn't get all the work done that you needed to do, somebody asks you for something and you bite back. That is one of the first stages of burnout. People who become burned out are emotionally exhausted. They have that feeling of depersonalization. They feel as if no matter what they do, it is not good enough. So look at table 27.4 and be aware of those burnout symptoms. We know that we are in a healthcare or a caregiver situation. People who are in healthcare, social workers, nurses, teachers, tend to become very wound up in the clients that they're working with, And it can be very difficult to disengage at the end of the day from those clients. Sometimes you will see people who will become almost, I'm going to say the word. I think they become infatuated with their clients, whether it be that they fall in love with them or they just can't pull back from their clients. And they think about the client when they go home, they think about the client's family, they think about the impact that the communication issue is having on their family, and they really aren't, they're losing control. They're kind of becoming, I guess you'd say, so overabsorbed that they're losing their perspective in that client and professional relationship. They allow the clients to call them at home. They may call the client and they may break those personal boundaries. Be aware of that, especially early on. It may happen to you, and it may become an issue that you need to address, and you need to step back. We do have several research pieces in speech pathology and audiology that look at the causes, the coping mechanisms, and the preventative strategies. The causes of burnout tend to be job dissatisfaction, when you don't feel like you're effective, you're not managing and coping with all of the pieces that you need to keep in order in your personal life and in your professional life. The book gives you some really nice strategies to pull away from that burnout, looking at the warning signs. And I've talked a little bit about them now, but also table 27 really gives you a nice idea of those warning signs. One of the things you can do to just manage that stress is to know who you are, know what motivates you, know how to disconnect, compartmentalize. When work is done, work is done. Take time for yourself. Make sure you have hobbies. Make sure you are physically fit. Make sure that you are mentally fit. Keep your nutrition strong. Keep things balanced. Are you gaining weight? Have you gained 10 pounds in the last 6 months? Be aware of that and make changes in your environment. Work smarter. Be productive at work. Don't take too much work home. Say no. If there are extra projects and you are too busy, start saying, no, I'm not able to do that at this time. That's okay. A good manager would much rather have you say no, not do the extra work, than become so burnt out and frustrated that you quit. Nutrition, as I said, is really important, but even what we call decompression activities, going for a walk during your lunch hour, taking extra time for yourself, making sure that you have good exercise habits, making sure that if you're a crafty person, you take time for that. If you have hobbies, do that. Recently, I have started doing yoga and meditation, and that's been very, very helpful. So you can make sure you do that. This is not something that you can do for one year or for one interval. It's something you have to continually cycle back and take advantage of, take perspective of, and reinitiate over and over again during your work time positions. Continuing education can be very, very helpful. Go to a conference. Go to a conference that you wouldn't necessarily first think that you would like. Maybe take a specific class in meditation or yoga or aerobics. Continue to grow as a person and as a professional. Sometimes you may need counseling. I am the first to admit I have had more counselors and more counseling than most, and it has always, always helped set me back on track. Incorporate humor into your daily life. It does help you. Have an action plan. That is what this is going to be about. That's all.